Alright folks, welcome to another round of coffee and questions. And what's today's topic? Well, you saw on my previous video I did kind of like a quick overview on an angle grinder. I bought the 11 amp Hercules out at Harbor Freight because I wanted another one, and I wanted one that had power. And the decision making process, I picked it up, I handled it, I thought, yeah, I could pay more money, I could get a DeWalt, Milwaukee, whatever, Makita. I already have those. They're not anywhere near the 11 amp. 11 amp sounded like a good amount of power. I wanted to try it, and I know Hercules seemed to be good in terms of reviews and everything else, and I'll go over that with you in a little while when we conclude the video. But I went ahead, I bought it, and along with that I turned around and I bought, let me find it, like I said in the last video, I bought the Warrior brand right here 4.5 inch carbide cup wheel. But also through Amazon, I bought the Kutzall. A lot more money, okay? You're looking at $10 versus probably $30, $40. I'll take another look. But this is the Kutzall coarse. Now, Kutzall makes coarse, extra coarse, and fine. So this blue one is like the in-between, the coarse. The extra coarse is a black wheel, and the other one I believe is green in color. So this right here is the Extreme series. It's made in the USA. Let's see, what else does it say on here? 4.5 inch diameter, 7/8 arbor, the bore. It's coarse, fast cutting, long lasting, aggressive stock removal on wood, which is why I bought it, was for wood carving, and I wanted to do a little bit more making bowls and stuff like that, and I wanted a really good wheel. Let me see what else it says. Alright, I'm reading on here. It says the Kutzall Extreme series has a coating, features a more open, free cutting coating. This coating is exceptionally resistant to loading, even on very soft materials. These tools will perform with highly aggressive cutting action. It's perfect for carving. It's perfect for the carver looking to remove a lot of stock very quickly with minimal effort. And the shaping disc part of it, it just tells you you can shape with it by tilting it at different angles, in your angle grinder. Okay, so we're going to compare the two, the Warrior brand to this. Now there's not going to be much of a comparison. I can tell you I've never even used this. I've never taken it out of the box. I put my finger in here and I know this thing is incredibly aggressive, and I know it's going to work a hell of a lot better, but would I still buy the Harbor Freight one after I do the comparison and we do a little demo on a scrap piece of wood? I don't know, but we'll find out together. Now the other thing I'm going to tell you on here, where somebody had sent me an email asking a question saying, hey, I've got the smaller burrs and it has trouble, it loads up, with wood fibers and stuff like that. I mean, how do you keep yours clean? Well, I keep it clean. There are 3 ways, so let me explain. You can take a wire brush or a nylon brush from a dollar store, or a brass brush from out at Harbor Freight, or a wire brush, and you can hit them with it. You're not going to hurt this tungsten carbide. So that's a fast, easy way to do it, and I do that a lot, especially if I'm out and I'm carving on something. Now another method is you can take a solvent and you can soak it overnight in solvent. At the end of your day, hit it with a wire brush in the morning, it'll come out crystal clean, and I've done that before too, but that is probably the least of my favorite methods. Now the other method that I do is I use this. It's a Bernzomatic torch right here. You can get these on Amazon. I'll put a link below for anybody that's interested in propane. And don't waste your money on MAP gas. I did a whole video. The difference in Fahrenheit between the propane and the MAP gas isn't worth paying the additional money for, to make a long story short. But anyway, you can burn it. You just heat the hell out of it. You're not going to hurt it, and then hit it with a wire brush. All that stuff falls right off. So my 2 top methods are just wire brushing it, and hitting it like that, or if it's really stubborn, I burn it and then hit it with a wire brush. It comes clean, it's fast, and it's easy to do, especially with the Bernzomatic torch. Okay, let's get right after it. I'm going to switch the camera over. Let's see how the first one does, which is the Warrior brand, carbide cup wheel. Okay, let's try that first, and then we'll come back. I'll put this one on, we'll try this, and then we'll talk about both. Okay, now this is a piece of wood that I used in the last video, and I'll do this area right up in here right now, and we'll see how this thing handles and how it works. Okay, I would say that that worked pretty damn well, and I'll do the question and answer part of this in a little bit, but what I wanted to quickly do is I wanted to quickly switch over to the Kutzall. This is the coarse one now. We're going to go try that. I'm going to set it up. Let's do a little bit of a demo. I won't do it for very long because it throws a ton of dust. These things are messy as hell, so you want to do it out in an open area. You will mess up your garage for sure. It throws out a lot of dust. Okay, so all safety precautions, like I said, let's go ahead, let's set it up. Let's try this, we'll come back, we'll talk about both. Alright folks, so I'm back, and this was the Kutzall course from the Extreme series. So let's have a discussion really about both. So the Kutzall Extreme series, these are not cheap discs. They run close to 50-60 bucks. The Harbor Freight ones, $10, and you use a discount coupon. Which one initially performed better? Well, what performed better was the Kutzall, of course, and I knew that hands down. This Carbide one here out at Harbor Freight, I would buy these. I give both of these a thumbs up. I'll explain to you why. When I used the Kutzall disc, it actually cuts beautifully, but it cuts smoother. It doesn't cut as aggressively as this one. And I actually went back over, if you take a close look on the video, I went back over some of the marks that were made by this one from Harbor Freight, and I was able to get them nice and smoothed out. I mean, and they look much smoother, which means less sanding. So they both have a great purpose. I would buy these again. I would tear through the bark and tear it up and rough it up or whatever I want, because I don't give a damn about these really. And then I would switch over to the Kutzall one, increase the longevity of it by using it that way. So what does this one cut like then? It cuts like probably like 16 grit. The other one cuts probably more, like, you know, I don't know, 40, 60. It cuts very much smoother is what I'm trying to say. Can you use it on stone? I wouldn't. It says that you can. I think that you'll ruin them faster. I'm going to use them primarily on wood. So PVC, I don't know why you would want to. It's just not going to work on PVC. I wouldn't think, but try it if you want. Metal, no, you're going to tear this thing up. I would not put this to metal. A lot of times do I use this to do all of the hogging out of the wood. I'm going to show you a project in a little while or on the next video. I use Forstner bit, and I kind of hog out if I'm making like anything, and I try to take out as much as I can, and then I use these shaping discs and I go ahead and I shape out, you know, the contour of the bowl. That's kind of how I do it. Other people use the chainsaw wheels. I'll do another video on that coming up because I bought one. I bought the Lancelot online and I'm going to try it out, but that's how I do it for right now. Well, what do I like about both of these with the cupped wheel? I can cut aggressively by pushing on it, especially with this 11 amp grinder, or I can do real lightly and I can do sweeping motions. Another nice thing about this one from Warrior, it has the holes in it, which as you're doing it you can actually see through. You can see the project and you can see how you're doing. Now the Kutzall one doesn't have that at all. It's okay. I mean, you have to get used to the tool. I don't care what tool you buy, what tool you're using. You have to get used to it. So get some scrap wood, start playing around, and then you'll get the hang of it. Holding it like this versus the sweeping versus any other angle or any other contour that you're trying to do. The more you play with this, the better you're going to get at it. That's really my advice. I mean, along those lines, but it works really well. Saves a lot of time in terms of like getting the bulk of wood out of projects. Well, it's just a matter of it's like, well, how do you know how to contour something? It's what's in your head, okay? You're transferring what's in your head to your hands and creating, the sweeping motions. Hey, don't worry about messing up. I mean, I say this in all my videos. Look, I've screwed up a bunch of times with these tools. I mean, and destroyed things. I don't care. I just throw it in the wood pile and say screw it. But always analyze why you made the error that you did so that you don't make it again. I mean, that's all, and just move forward. You'll get better at it. Initially, when you're wondering about my depth, I use a piece of tape around a drill bit. It doesn't matter if you're using a handheld drill or a drill press, and just go down to where the tape touches, and that's kind of like my depth marker. And then I go all over the internal piece of wood, and then I just start scooping it out, with the other blades, primarily these, until I get it to that depth, and then you start sweeping and contouring, switch over to something else. I mean, if it's a big enough bowl, you can use a random orbital sander, or you can use, this 4.5-inch angle grinder and use a flap wheel. Very careful, depending on the grit. You want to use light sweeping motions, because what you're trying to do is get out the marks from these and smooth it out and make it look nice before you apply a finish. Do they load up easy? No, not at all. Neither one of these loads up easy. This doesn't really load up on me at all, but I am using it on dry wood for all these demonstrations. If you're using it on something that has a lot of moisture content, I suppose, yeah, it can plug them up, but I haven't run into that problem so far because the wood that I'm using it on is dried wood. So again, I already explained to you how to clean it. Just go ahead and clean it and keep moving forward if you have moisture content. Can you describe, when you're doing a bowl, how do you do it? I just take a blank piece of wood and a felt pen, and I'm going to do that in the next video when I do the chainsaw blades, and I just draw an outline around the perimeter of what I'm doing. Or if you want most of it, I don't know, stay like about 1 inch in and then trace out what you want the bowl to look like. Do you want it oblong or do you want it perfectly round? You can use a compass. Smack it, scroll it, scribe it rather, and then there you go. And then there's your initial bowl for your carving. A lot of times I don't make them perfectly round. I make them oblong or weird patterns. It's just what I do and just, having fun. Well, you can work left to right, right to, you can do whatever. I usually work right to left in sweeping motions, okay? It's just what I do. It's just how I've gotten used to doing it, and it works for me. Try it. If you find another method works for you, that's totally fine too. But to answer your question, I usually just sweep right to left. Like I said, light, gentle, because what I'm trying to do is just get rid of most of the sanding marks that I can. Again, it depends on the size of the bowl. I try to use the 4.5-inch angle grinder, and I have 60, 80, and 120 grit sanding flat discs, and so those are the ones that I use. Of course, if you can get in there with a random orbital sander, by all means, you could do that too. Hand sand, which I try to avoid. Sitting around sanding something by hand's a pain in the ass. I like things to move along a little bit quicker, so I try these other methods, get it as far as I can before I worry about hand sanding. Another question, how do I handle the bottom of the bowls, or how do I handle the bottom of the things that I'm making? Well, two ways. This is what I do. It's what works for me. I either use a hand planer, and I go zoop, zoop, and I've done a video on how to use a hand planer. If you don't know how, go back, take a look at it. Or I use my belt sander with 60 grit, then I switch over to 80 grit, and then I may go to 120. I might not if it's not that big. I do the 120, 180 routine, with a random orbital. But with that belt sander and just like a square, like this, I can set it on there and I can hit it enough, I can set it down, and I can play around till I get it sitting perfectly flat. It's just a matter of practice, and you'll get just as good at it. The planer works on larger projects for me. I've got videos on this stuff, or drop me a comment and I'll do another one if you're that curious. But I mean, those are the two methods primarily that I use. Bowl and thickness. Wow, that's a hard one, because if you're using these shaping discs, I use my hands as a gauge. It doesn't need to be incredibly precise. These things are rustic looking bowls, but they look cool because you're keeping a lot of the natural form and maybe even the bark and stuff in them. But I use my hands, and if you go around and like you say, well, this is like 1 inch, and all of a sudden you hit a spot where it really opens up on you, I know to go in there with a contour with one of these, and start shaping it down. Then I run my hand along there until I have that approximate width and thickness. Same thing with the bottom. Now it depends. I did one for a customer a while back. They wanted the bottom thicker. Let's say they wanted the bottom 1.5 inches thick. I don't know why. I was like, look, whatever. I mean, that's fine. And I did it kind of the way that they wanted it, and we send pictures back and forth. They approve it, and I finished it out. So use your hands. That's my advice. You can use other methods, of course, but I use my hands a lot. I mean, for this rough shaping and rough, cutting. Well, we're going to go over this in the next video. Somebody asked a question, well, when you get done with the chainsaw blade, then you switch to the shaping? Yeah, the answer is yes, but I have not tried the new Lancelot blade yet. I'm going to do that in the next video, but the answer to your question is yes. Use the chainsaw blade, get your depth all cut out, then come back with, one of these two right here, and go ahead and start shaping, carving, and taking it out to the thickness that you want. But the chainsaw one, you can use sweeping motions with the chainsaw one. Just be real careful, with what you're doing. I do have another Warrior brand one, and we'll discuss that too. But anyway, yes. A lot of times I finish sand the inside of it by hand. It doesn't take me that long. I mean, once I get up there, and I'm going to put a film finish on most of these. Most of these are not to eat out of. If you're going to eat out of it, then you want to use something food safe. But most of these that I do are for decorations and things like that. So I would tell you, look, I mean, when I'm done using that flap wheel at 120, I'll hand sand with 150. I might hit it just a little bit with 220 and smooth out the top edges and stuff like that. Then I start applying my finish. Because it's a film finish, you don't need to sand up higher through the grits. You really won't be achieving anything more. I mean, that's what I found. What do I like about these in particular? These kind of things, you don't get what they call kickback, which you could really easily get from a chainsaw or a chainsaw blade where it wants to jump back at you. I don't notice that with these at all. So that's a nice little safety thing, and nice thing just to know. What would be nice to have is probably a speed control. I don't have one on any of my angle grinders. I've just learned to use them without that. But somebody made the comment, wouldn't it be nicer if you had a speed control, because then you could slow down the aggressiveness of the cut? Well, yes, that's true. Also, what's true is with a lot of things, including the flap wheels, you wouldn't burn the wood. I've just learned to move quickly and just through technique and trial and error, but I don't have an angle grinder that has a variable speed on it. So I can't really answer your question directly, but you're right in what you're saying about about being able to control the cuts and the burning of the wood. When I do these, I have firm grip on this. I have a firm grip on the handle, and I have a firm grip here. I never do things with one hand. I know people that have done it. I've watched videos where people have done it. I don't think it's a safe idea. It's not something that I practice, and I don't want to do. So, the question is, why would I not wanted the cordless versions? Because I think cordless are kind of gutless, and the batteries wear down quick. My power tools, and I'm working out of a garage, I don't have an issue worrying about where to get power from. I think you get a lot more power when it's a corded tool. That's just my opinion. I'm sure that somebody will disagree with me, but a friend of mine has got, I think it's a DeWalt angle grinder, and we were using it on a metal gate or something, and he's got 3 batteries, and they're all charged because we were switching through them so quickly. They tend to wear down the power fast. At least that's what I noticed, and I don't need to worry about that. you know, with a good corded angle grinder. So all of mine are corded, to answer your question. My biggest advice before we conclude this part of this and we go, my next video will be about the chainsaw blade. Go slow, get some scrap wood, play around with this carving, you know, and you're going to get the hang of it. But learn the tool first, okay? Once you got it on there, I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting to do a project. My first project, I'll show you in one of the coming up videos, turned out perfectly fine. You just want to go slow with it, learn the tool, learn how to do this cupping motion where you're making these sweeping cuts and shaping, and the more you play with this, the better you're going to get at shaping, and the more you might get into carving things. You can take what somebody views as just a piece of firewood and turn it into like a work of art, or something functional where somebody looks at the grain pattern and goes, wow, that's really cool. How much you want for it? And like I've always said, I keep tons of photos, you know, on my phone. I show them to people, and I sell stuff right off of my phone by showing them to people. So you can do that too. Okay, I'm the Home Handyman. I hope you click subscribe. I hope you keep following me. This concludes what I had to say between the Kutzall and the Warrior brand. Good. I would buy these again definitely, because I'll strip that bark off of there, and I don't care if I hit a nail or whatever, you know, there might be some metal in the tree or just little rocks embedded in the bark and what have you. I will tear these up. Don't give a shit for the price, okay? And they work great. Get it down to the bare wood, and I'll switch over to my Kutzall, which was much more expensive, but it's like going to a finer grit sandpaper, and it removes all of the marks from the Warrior one. I give both of these a thumbs up. More costly, yes, but it will last you a hell of a lot longer than most of these things. It's great longevity. This right here is a great thing. I would tell you it's like a throwaway thing, but so far it hasn't been a throwaway thing. My last comment, for about $8 or whatever I paid for this, I've probably stripped off 8 or 9 pieces of bark and crap off of these trees on this truckload of wood I got, and, you know, put them aside for projects. Well worth the money to me. I'm the Home Handyman. Click subscribe. I'll see you on the next video when we talk about that chainsaw blade. You folks have a great day. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.